Our speaker first became involved with Rotary through the Rotary Youth Exchange Program in 2008. She was sponsored by the Calistoga Rotary Club to spend a year in Tres Arroyos, Argentina. After returning from Argentina, she studied psychology and development at the University of San Francisco, where she was able to intern internationally and live with host families in Honduras and Uganda. After graduating, she studied mental health, culture, and access to resources both locally and internationally through multiple research studies at the UC San Francisco and San Francisco VA. She then moved to the San Fernando Valley this past September to start her master's degree in social welfare at UCLA. She interns as a case manager with communities and schools in Pacoima and is currently working on a project to improve access to resources and decrease community violence through the San Fernando Valley Coalition on Gangs. Please welcome Maggie Brooks.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to have gotten in touch with Mel. I stalked you guys on the internet for a while to figure out where the closest Rotary Club was and what was going on, and then got a hold of Mel and said, can I come? And
also the best, not just the closest, the best.
So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of background about where I'm from and how I ended up in Rotary, and then tell you a little bit about my year as an exchange student, and then how that's influenced me and brought me to where I am now. So I'm originally from Middletown, California, which used to have 1,100 people. It has since gone down in population. It's a very rural town. We have a stoplight and a grocery store, and that's about it. It's fun to grow up there. I grew up climbing trees and catching snakes and, you know, riding horses and all that fun stuff. But it's hard to be a teenager in that setting, as I'm sure you could imagine. So I was pretty interested in finding out what world existed outside of Middletown. My dad's a conservation biologist. I grew up going to UC Davis a lot, asking a lot of questions all the time. My mom teaches intercultural communication at a community college in Napa, and also caused me to ask a lot of questions about culture. And my hometown, it was about 50% white, 50% Latino. There was not much diversity other than that. And so again, just a lot of questions that were going on in my head. When I was a sophomore in high school, I met someone named Paulo, who was an exchange student from Brazil. And he was just so exciting to me because he was talking about his life in Brazil and then meeting all these exchange students here in California and all these trips they were doing. And he was a musician and playing music with all these people from all over, and it just sounded so exciting. I decided I need to do that. And so he told me about Rotary. I was not familiar with Rotary much before that. But I was excited and reached out. The town that I went to high school in, Calistoga, the Rotary Club was very supportive, but they didn't have the funds actually to sponsor me, so they helped find another club that would sponsor me, and they were very supportive. So from there, it started to get really exciting, and I started knowing that that was going to happen. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with the exchange program, but at least in my district, we don't know where we're going. We agree to the program before we have any idea of what's coming. There's no language requirement to be in the program. I didn't speak much Spanish at all, and so I didn't really know what was coming. So in my district up in Northern California, the way we find out where we're going is a snowboarding trip around January or February. And all these current exchange students visiting from around the world, as well as future exchange students like myself, gather together in this big gym in a church near Mount Shasta. So we all had driven up there, and that first night was when we were finding out where we were going. So the way we did it is we divided the gym in half, and we had half of the gym had all the current exchange students grouped together by their countries. So they had the Belgian exchange students that were chanting and holding their flags, and a lot of different countries that were represented. Some of them only had one student, some of them had 5 or 6. So it was very exciting, a lot of adrenaline. Some students that wanted to be exchange students had one country they'd always wanted to go to, and that was the only country they could think of. Other students had zero idea of where they wanted to go to. I was kind of in that boat. I'd suggested 3 countries in South America, but I didn't really care. I just wanted to get out. So I was feeling really excited, and they go through an alphabetical order by last name, so we know when we're coming, we step forward and they announce it, and then the country that you're going to, the students visiting from that country get very excited and they'll surround you, kind of depending on the culture of that country. But as you can imagine, when Argentina was called, I was wrapped in the flag, they were singing in Spanish, and I instantly just was ecstatic. I had never met anyone from Argentina, I knew nothing of the country's history, and so I instantly started learning, sat down with them, had my first cup of mate, and started asking questions. From there, I started caring for my host family in the summer before I left. So this is now the summer after my sophomore year of high school. My host sister emailed me. She was also a sophomore in high school. She was going to be on exchange for a year in Colorado while I was visiting in Argentina. She spoke some English. She'd been preparing for her year, so we emailed in English. But they weren't very lengthy emails. She shared with me that her parents had joined Rotary because she would want to be an exchange student, and in their club you had to join Rotary to send a student, and you had to host an exchange student for a year to send your child. So they were very nervous and didn't really know what to expect, but we're excited. My host father, Jose, was the grandson of Italian immigrants. He owned a cookie factory, which was so much fun to go to. So they made kind of like Milanos, or a drier cookie that's then packaged and shipped out. My host mother, Nancy, was a civil engineer. She was the daughter of immigrants from Denmark, and Spanish was actually her second language, which felt like kind of bonded us when I first arrived and was confused and overwhelmed. And then I had one older host sister who was in college in Mar del Plata, which was a few hours away from the town that I would be in. As was mentioned, I was going to be sent to Tres Arroyos, which is a pretty small city in Argentina. It's towards the southern end of the province of Buenos Aires. And it's surrounded by farmland, so a lot of people in Tres Arroyos are there during the week, and then they go to the farms on the weekend, or the fathers generally would be working on the farms, running everything during the week and come back on the weekends. So kind of a little bit of the culture there. So I was thrilled. I could not wait to go out. My friends all started their junior year of high school beginning of September, and I left on September 11th, 2008. When I arrived, my host parents picked me up, and again, they spoke zero English. I spoke very little Spanish. I had my dictionary out, and we drove for about 6 hours. It's kind of a daze to me. Got there, ate a bunch of food, and then I slept for probably 5 hours or so. I woke up around 10 p.m., which is about time to start making dinner in Argentina. And this is still my first night, and I understood that I had to go to the living room. And about 6 girls came in, and one boy, all about my age, all kissed me on the cheek, were hugging me. I was a little confused as to who they were, but they were very nice. I later found out that they'd grown up with my host sister Luciana, who had left about a week before me for exchange. So they were missing her, and I was the new Luciana. So they adopted me into their group of friends. Growing up, part of it was growing up in the country. You don't really have many options to pick friends. So my friends growing up were my neighbors, essentially. I grew up with a big group of boys. I was used to being competitive, playing sports, who could canoe the fastest, all that kind of stuff was my comfort zone. I did not grow up with many girls. So being surrounded by all these girls, which is just a cultural difference in Argentina, you generally don't hang out with people of the opposite sex in high school, was new to me, but exciting. So again, didn't understand what they were saying, but I instantly felt very welcomed. And a few of them play guitar. I also play guitar, so we started playing the Beatles and certain songs. It was really exciting to me to kind of feel like, okay, we're going to have connections here in one way or another. I started attending school. It was called Colegio Holandés, which is a Holland school, essentially. The town I was in had originally been settled by many Dutch people, and it had been a few generations before I was there, but there was definitely a European influence, as is common throughout Argentina. But there were very few, there were essentially no English speakers other than Mormons in the town I was in. So it was interesting. The high school I went to was also a science high school, so everyone had been taking chemistry for 3 years when I arrived. I'd never taken a chemistry class before. Things like that, with the language barrier, were very exciting. But it was fun. That group of friends really adopted me into their circle from the first night. I think made my exchange fabulous the whole time. My host parents really trusted them. I didn't know where we were going ever. I never knew what we were doing. I couldn't understand what was going on, but my host mom always trusted. They were communicating with my host family, and until I learned Spanish, they were just taking me along with wherever they went. They would show up, we'd grab our bikes, we'd go wherever, and we'd be gone. So it was really fabulous for that reason. I really felt at home far before I could understand what anyone was saying. So kind of falling in love with Argentina was such a fun process. At the beginning, I would spend most of my free time riding my bike to try to figure out where things were in town. I would ride my bike for about an hour in any direction and then spend the rest of the day trying to find my way back home. I had a phone, I knew how to call people. Again, we couldn't communicate too well, but it worked out. And kind of a funny thing with Rotary at the beginning, when I first arrived, again, before I understood what was going on, was entered the Rotary fashion show. So it was a fundraiser for the local Rotary Club, and a few friends of mine and myself were modeling in this show. And I mean, I understood what it was once I was there, but the DJ apparently, or the MC, had announced while I was walking that I was a visiting exchange student, and it was later I learned on the local television channel. So being in again, a pretty small city, a lot of people recognized me after that because I didn't have many exchange students. So that was interesting to have taxi drivers that, you know, were asking me about California and things like that. I think in retrospect, actually, it made it a little easier because a lot of people were reaching out to me, but it was funny. Also, for those, I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with Argentina, but physically I fit in very well in Argentina. People didn't know I was a foreigner, which has its pros and cons. You can fit in and feel at home if I wasn't speaking or I knew what I could say that wouldn't come out with an accent. But then it also makes it lonelier at other times. People are like, why is she quiet, or why is she not aware of everything going on? So it was also just an interesting factor. I started taking tango lessons at the local city hall, which I loved. Boliches are the clubs in Argentina, which my parents, it took a while to explain to them that this was an okay thing and this is just what happens in Argentina. I was 16 at this point, and we would, most Friday and Saturday nights, all my girlfriends and I would get together after dinner, generally around midnight. We would get ready together, leave around 2 in the morning, go to the local boliche and dance salsa, merengue, I mean cumbia. It was so much fun until about 6 or 7 in the morning. Go to the bakery, eat breakfast, go home and sleep until lunch. So this is what we did on the weekends. Again, my Rotary Club in California was a little bit confused about it, but I explained, no, I think this is really good, this is fun. And it really was. It was, for a small town girl, just like the coolest thing I could ever imagine. And seeing that, again, it's something about the warm culture of being able to just dance and celebrate all the time. It was really powerful for me. In the summer, which is about December through March, I was on break from school. I went with my host family. We had a nearby beach town that was really fun and very, very casual. We spent a lot of time just lying on the sand. It wasn't the most beautiful beach, but it was just a fun place for friends. Everyone from our town went there in the summer. So everyone stayed in these little beach shacks, and it was just a lot of fun. And by then I was starting to understand Spanish more. I was really connected with my host family, really connected with my friends, and understood a lot more about where I was going when I left with them and what was going to happen. My host family, we went on about a 2-week trip to Mar del Plata, another beach town, a bit larger, and just want to share kind of a fun story from that. My host family always asked what I miss most about California, and I always said Mexican food. In Argentina, the food is amazing. I love meat. I love dulce de leche. I'm sold on living on the two of those things, but they never eat beans. They never make anything spicy. So for me, I really miss spicy food, and I was explaining that to my host family, and they couldn't really wrap their head around it because they didn't like spicy food. But I came back one day from the beach to the apartment that we were staying in, and my host had found a string of dried peppers, and he was so excited about them. So he chopped them up. He also does not cook, so there should have been many red flags here. But he chopped up all the peppers and put them in oil in a frying pan, and then poured them all over my pasta, seeds and everything. So I understood that he had searched so long for these, and he was so proud of them. So I'm hiccuping and crying and sweating, like, I love this, thank you. So it was pretty funny, and also just something I won't forget, because the whole time he's like, oh, I think she enjoys this paint. Like, she loves spicy food. It's good. So it was pretty funny. But again, just part of being an exchange student, you start learning that that's okay, and that comes up, and people mean well. A few other very cool things. Most exchange students get the opportunity to do Rotary trips with visiting exchange students. So I got to go on 2 trips while I was in Argentina. One was up to Iguazu Falls, which is on the border of Argentina, Brazil, and Paraguay, and it's incredible. I've been to Niagara Falls, and it just doesn't compare at all. I mean, it's so tropical and lush. We did zip lining, we were in the water, we were sleeping on buses for nights on end while we were getting there. I mean, I was traveling with about 50 exchange students. Everyone had learned different levels of Spanish. Generally, people were communicating in Spanish, sometimes in English, but it was just incredible. And the second trip I did, which to me is still the most beautiful place I've ever seen, is El Fin del Mundo, which means end of the world, or Patagonia. We took the bus down there, and it was summertime, and it's so far from the equator. The sun rises about 3 in the morning, and we took trains and buses to get there, stayed in this beautiful town, and everything was green. I remember taking the train through one section with horses running around us, wildflowers everywhere. It was just incredible. And then we got to see the glaciers. Not again to my original Rotary clubs. They weren't so happy to hear this part, but we hiked over the glaciers with ice shoes. It was very warm that day, so we were wearing tank tops and shorts, but on glaciers, which is alarming on some levels in terms of what's happening with the climate, but made it very comfortable. And we hiked all the way up, and at the end they used ice pick. We took an ice pick of a piece out of the glacier and had a glass of whiskey on this ice from this glacier we had climbed up to like end our trip. And so again, as you can imagine, being from a small town and being 16, like, I just couldn't wrap my head around this being real. My family, actually, I'd never been out of the country before this. I wouldn't have been able to travel financially if I didn't have this opportunity. So for me, I was just on a high for the whole year. And then the second half of the year after those trips was really just, I really saw Tres Arroyos as my home, and I saw my host family as really being another family to me. I talked to my parents pretty frequently, actually, either Skyping or calling, but I was just very connected with my host family there. And one of the things that I love so much and that I hope to continue in my future were the Italian tradition of having huge family lunches. My host dad's side of the family, his parents were identical, 2 sets of identical twins that had married each other, so all the cousins looked the same, which was funny. So it was just this huge Italian and Argentine family that got together every Sunday. My host grandparents were in their early 80s when I was visiting, and they would make handmade pasta for all those meals. And it was just wonderful. We would eat for hours, we would go home, we'd take siestas. Sundays were just spectacular. And something that I really connected with pretty early on. My aunt, my real aunt, was able to visit me in March, which was also very powerful. Rotary generally has pros and cons with having family members visit. I don't think I could have handled much more than just my aunt visiting at that time, but it really helped me connect both of my lives in that sense, you know, bringing someone from home and sharing this is my current life, and then still today, her feeling so connected to my host family in Argentina was really helpful when I came back, actually. So we went around. She didn't speak any Spanish at all, so I realized how exhausting it was, again, to be a constant translator. We stayed with my host family for a few days and then got to travel, but another powerful story, one day I had to my aunt had lost her credit card when she first arrived in Argentina, so I was on the phone with all these different Argentine businesses to try to track it down, and she was trying to communicate with my host mom, and somehow they communicated. My host grandmother actually passed away about a month after I arrived, and this was my host mom's mother. And she had been really into sewing, and especially into making doilies. And my grandmother is also very much, she's a master quilter actually, and she makes also a lot of doilies. So they somehow started communicating about these doilies, and I come out and my host mom and my aunt are both crying and holding each other, like hugging each other and looking through all these doilies, and I had no idea how it had gotten to this point. I knew they couldn't communicate with much language, but you know, when you are in a setting where you can't communicate with others, you really realize how to connect with people on different levels. So I got really good at motioning things and drawing out pictures, and I'm assuming that that's what they had used too. When my aunt came back, she actually mailed my host mom a bunch of my grandma's doilies, so they traded, which was very cool. Spent a lot of holidays down there. Christmas was very different, but it was really fun. Again, we eat dinner with the whole family around 10, 11 p.m. At midnight, you go out to the streets and you watch the fireworks, which was very hectic because they're letting off fireworks in the middle of the streets. And then all these people are riding motorcycles through them, which was, I mean, I'm standing by my house, but as you can imagine, a little alarming, but I was watching it. And then suddenly we come back in the house and Santa's arrived at midnight. So my host uncle was wearing a Santa mask, which also was a little scary to me, but I liked the idea. And they're not big on gifts in Argentina for really any holiday, but each person got one small gift, and Santa handed it out. So things like that were pretty cool. I had a birthday down there as well, which was, you know, we make asado, which takes all day. Generally it's the men in the family that make the asado, and then just a big feast, lots of torta, and then of course we went to the boliche. So things like that, you know, it was very different than California, but I just really loved it. I also went out to a lot of football games where we would watch the local team play, and we'd eat chorizo just in bread, and it was really wonderful, really fun. And then when I had to leave Argentina, was way harder than anything else, way harder than leaving my hometown to go there. I actually, all my friends and my host family had made a big packet for me with letters about, you know, their favorite memories and stuff, and pictures for me to read on the plane, which was a terrible idea. I do not recommend it. I was on the plane randomly with a group of duck hunters from Kentucky who had all been drinking, and to me were the stereotype of how Argentines were describing Americans the whole time that I was so defensive towards, and I was surrounded by them, and it was really a big culture shock for me. And then I'm reading these letters and I was crying hysterically before the plane even took off. The man next to me actually asked to move seats because he didn't know how to comfort me. So it was really hard. I still, anytime a friend of mine is able to live abroad, I'm so there for them when they get back and wanting to hear all the stories, because that is the hardest thing about traveling, in my opinion, is returning to your same life. I came back to my small town, my friends had not changed. Everyone was the same. All the outings were the same, my house was the same, and I felt like I had changed so much, which was a really hard thing for that senior year of high school. My parents were very supportive and hearing all the stories all the time. Facebook and Skype were awesome to still feel very connected to everyone back home. And it was, yeah, a big culture shock, but also made me extremely motivated to go off to college. I had zero fear at all. I was so ready to leave again. I knew I wanted to be in a city. I knew I wanted to be in a diverse city, and I wanted to study something that would be culturally informed. I also realized that I loved people and wanted to study people, hence studying psychology. And I ended up at University of San Francisco. A big thing for exchange for me came out when I met other students that were moving away for the first time, and realizing how much my year in exchange really prepared me for college. I was used to being very independent. I was used to problem solving. I was used to being around all new people, making connections quickly, even if we maybe didn't have much in common. But finding a way to make those connections was a skill that I really helped develop, I think, in Argentina. So that's a big reason I try to promote anyone in high school, especially, looking into the opportunity. I know it's scary, but it's really worth it if you're interested. Once I was in college, I was getting involved in as much as I could. I was working in research labs from my first year. I was working with social workers, and I was, again, taking as many classes that were looking at different cultures and looking at development at the same time. I started working in a lab that was multilingual and multicultural at UCSF my sophomore year. We did a big study around the world to provide resources for depression and anxiety while also gathering data and adjusting that, which was really interesting to me. I did my honors thesis on looking at how Western biases exist in the way we look at development and how that can be harmful, and had a great time working on that too. And then I also got to do a few international trips. I was in Honduras working with a gynecologist through global medical brigades, and that was pretty powerful, but for me it was the first time I had been able to travel since going to Argentina, and I was back in a Spanish-speaking country, so it was awesome. My same aunt that visited me came along with 40 college students for that trip as well. She's an RN, and so she was able to deliver those services there, and so we both were just loving it the whole time. I also was able to spend 3 months in Uganda working with at an HIV clinic, and also doing research into how stigma and physical health impacted their lives after they were diagnosed with HIV. And we worked really hard to decrease mother-to-child transmission of HIV. And again, living with my host family, I think that so many of the skills I learned in Argentina came through. I felt like I had a third family now, and really felt at home pretty quickly, and just you feel a lot of love in that setting and trust in others, which I think can be hard to get to. So for me, it makes my time abroad a lot easier. My younger brother, he's 4 years younger than me, he also became an exchange student. He went to Thailand. He's a fisherman and has been since he was about 5. So he picked all of his 3 countries off the kind of fish they had and how that would add to his list. It ended up working out well. He lives with host family. His mom she owned a really small restaurant, so he was catching fish all the time, selling it to them. I got to go visit him, and it was a major proud sister moment seeing him translate for me, and us travel around and see him in that setting, being really interested in identifying as a lot with Thai culture. And then just to wrap up, but a few last things. I also had one of my best friends from Argentina stay with me for 6 weeks in the dorms during my first year at college, which was, again, very powerful to see then someone from Argentina come meet my whole family and friend group in the U.S. and make connections with people that I loved from both countries. And then as far as where I am now, I moved down here in September to attend UCLA for my master's in social work. I want to get licensed as a therapist, but I'm really interested in doing community work. I'm interested in providing services to people who don't have access, and especially providing culturally sensitive services. I work at communities and schools, and I'm doing case management and therapy, and also working on community level work, working with LAPD and schools through the Coalition on Gangs to really identify what resources the community wants and how we can fill in those gaps. I'm also working at a psychiatric inpatient program in Culver City, where I'll be off to after this. And I'm learning a lot about mental health in the setting of, I guess, how SES and mental health are related, and how access to resources that are so valuable are necessary across all different populations. And it's really helping to inform me kind of how I want to use that in the future. And then I also just applied for a conference in Hong Kong this summer for a few weeks to look at how culture impacts social work and how we can be culturally informed when doing social work. So I really want to thank Rotary. Rotary had a huge impact on me, and I don't know where I would be today if it wasn't for that, but I just wanted to thank you. So thank you for having me.